My mom walked into my house and declared, "Since you have a big salary now, you owe us for raising you." When I refused, she screamed, "We sacrificed everything for you." My dad backed her up. "You're ungrateful." Then, she handed me an invoice for every meal, gift, and rent since birth. That night, my brother texted me, "They just sold your childhood bedroom for cash." I was halfway through folding laundry when I heard the front door open. I hadn't invited anyone over. My hands froze mid-fold, gripping a sweatshirt as my mother's voice rang out from the hallway. "Well, well, well," she said, stepping into my living room like she owned the place. "Look at you." My dad trailed behind her, silent as always, his hands stuffed in his pockets, eyes scanning my home like he was taking inventory of my belongings. I let out a slow breath, forcing down the irritation creeping up my spine. Did I miss a call or something? Mom scoffed, brushing past me to settle onto my couch, running her fingers over the fabric like she was testing its quality. "You've been so busy lately, I figured we'd just stop by." Which meant she wanted something. My mother never just stopped by. Dad remained standing, shifting his weight like he didn't want to be here. That put me on even higher alert. Mom was always the ringleader, but if Dad wasn't playing along enthusiastically, it meant whatever was coming was bad. I crossed my arms and leaned against the counter, trying to keep my voice neutral. "What's this about?" Mom's eyes flickered to Dad before she reached into her bag and pulled out a stack of papers, setting them carefully on the coffee table. "Since you have a good salary now," she said, smoothing out the edges of the papers, "it's time you start paying us back for everything we spent raising you." I blinked. For a second, I thought I misheard her. Then I laughed, short, sharp, and disbelieving. "You're joking." Mom's expression didn't change. "No, I'm not." I walked over to the table and picked up the top sheet. The numbers didn't make sense at first, row after row of charges, itemized like a goddamn billing statement. Rent, food, clothes, school supplies, Christmas presents, even the gas money they spent driving me to soccer practice. The total at the bottom made my stomach twist. $367,498.32. I let the papers fall back to the table. "This is insane." Dad finally spoke. "We sacrificed a lot for you, kid." His voice was quieter than Mom's, but there was steel in it. "Your mother and I worked extra hours, took out loans, gave up a lot so you could have a good life. It's only fair you contribute now that you're doing well." I felt my heart pounding, but I kept my voice steady. "I'm your child, not your investment." Mom's face twisted. "So you're saying you won't help your own parents?" I exhaled slowly, dragging a hand through my hair. "That's not what I'm saying, and you know it. You have a house," Mom continued, ignoring me. "A car. You're making six figures. Meanwhile, your father and I are struggling to keep the house we raised you in." And there it was. This wasn't about some sudden moral obligation. It was about money. They needed it. I swallowed hard, trying to keep my anger in check. "So what? You think you can just hand me a bill for my entire childhood and expect me to pay up?" Mom crossed her arms. "Yes." I let out a slow, humorless laugh. "I'm not giving you a goddamn cent." Mom shot up from the couch. "We sacrificed everything for you." Dad's voice was calmer, but just as firm. "We're asking for help, not a handout." I shook my head. "Help is one thing. This is financial manipulation." Mom's nostrils flared. "You're so ungrateful. Do you know how many kids would KLL to have parents who gave them everything?" I didn't ask for anything. My voice was sharp now. "You had a kid, and you did what parents are supposed to do. That's not a debt I owe you." Mom stared at me like I'd slapped her. Dad looked away. Silence stretched between us, thick and suffocating. Then I remembered something. Sebastian. My younger brother still lived at home. I clenched my jaw. "Where's Sebastian supposed to sleep now that you sold my room?" Mom's eyes flickered. "Gotcha." She hesitated just a second too long before waving a hand dismissively. "He's figuring things out." Rage settled deep in my chest. "You're screwing him over, just like you're trying to do to me." Mom's lips pressed into a thin line. "Sebastian is young. He'll land on his feet. And I'm what? A walking ATM." Neither of them answered. I let out a slow, controlled breath. "Fine." Mom's face brightened. "I knew you'd. I'll help." I cut in. "But not the way you think." I grabbed my laptop and started typing. Mom frowned. "What are you doing?" Dad shifted uneasily. "Hey now, let's not do anything rash. I'm filing a report." My voice was steady. "For what?" Mom's voice had an edge of forced calm. I turned the laptop screen toward them. "For fraud." Their faces drained of color. "Sebastian found something last night. Loan accounts opened in my name when I was a teenager. My parents had racked up over $50,000 in debt using my social security number. I hadn't wanted to believe it. But now, seeing the panic on their faces, I knew. Mom reached for my laptop, but I snapped it shut. "Don't." Dad's voice was sharp now. "You don't want to do this." I met his gaze, unflinching. "Watch me." Mom's voice softened. "Honey, we're your parents." I tilted my head. "That didn't stop you from stealing from me." Silence. Then I stood, grabbed my phone, and started dialing. Dad's eyes widened. Who are you calling? The bank, I said. To report the fraud. Mom's breath hitched. Wait. I stepped onto the porch and slammed the door behind me. Through the window, I could see Mom clutching Dad's arm, whispering furiously. I didn't care anymore. My phone buzzed. A text from Sebastian. I heard everything. Thank you. I exhaled, a slow, steady breath. You and me against the world, Seb. And with that, I walked away from the people who thought I owed them my life, toward the future I built for myself. I stood on my porch, my hands gripping my phone so tightly my knuckles turned white. My heart was pounding. Not from fear. No, that emotion had burned out a long time ago. This was something else. Rage. Exhaustion. Betrayal. Through the living room window, I could see my mother pacing, her hands gesturing wildly as she whispered furiously to my dad. He stood still, his arms crossed, his face unreadable. I took a deep breath, trying to steady myself. My thumb hovered over the call button. I could do this. I had to do this. Before I could press it, the front door swung open. Mom stepped outside, her face twisted into a mask of forced calm, the way she always looked when she was desperate to stay in control. Let's talk about this. Her voice was honeyed, soothing, like she was trying to coax me into dropping the whole thing. There's no need to get anyone else involved. I held up my phone. Then explain why you took out loans in my name. Mom's eyes flickered, barely a flinch, but I caught it. That was years ago, she said smoothly. And it wasn't like we went on vacations or wasted the money. We used it to keep you and Sebastian clothed and fed, to keep a roof over your heads. I let out a sharp laugh. So you admit it? Dad stepped onto the porch behind her, his voice even. We always planned to pay it back. And did you? Silence. The answer was obvious. I clenched my jaw. You ruined my credit. You stole from me. And now you have the audacity to hand me a bill for my own childhood. Mom reached out, but I stepped back. Her fingers curled into a fist, her carefully constructed mask slipping. This isn't how family treats each other, she hissed. My stomach churned. No, I agreed. It's not. A bead of silence stretched between us, thick and heavy. Then my phone buzzed. Sebastian. I glanced down. They're freaking out. Dad's been making calls since you left. I think they're trying to get ahead of something. I looked up, locking eyes with my father. Yeah, that sounded about right. He cleared his throat. Look, why don't we sit down? Talk about this rationally. Mom nodded quickly. Yes. No threats, no rash decisions. Just us, as a family. I exhaled through my nose. You mean you want time to cover your tracks? Mom's expression darkened. Don't be ridiculous. I'm done, I said, my voice firmer now. I'm not paying you. I'm not bailing you out. And I'm not letting you ruin my life the way you're about to ruin Sebastian's. Mom's face turned stone cold. We raised you. We gave you everything. And now you turn your back on us. I shook my head. You didn't give me everything. You took everything. Her lips parted like she had something else to say, but for the first time in my life, I didn't care to hear it. I turned and walked down the porch steps, my pulse hammering. Behind me, I heard my father mutter something to Mom. Her voice rose in response. We'll see how he feels when he needs us. I didn't look back, because I never would. I walked down my driveway, my breath coming out in short, sharp bursts, my fingers gripping my phone so tightly my knuckles ached. They thought I would just roll over, that I would let this slide, like I had let so many other things slide in the past. Not this time. I got in my car, slamming the door harder than I needed to. My hands trembled as I started the engine, but not from fear. I was done being manipulated. My phone buzzed again. Sebastian, are you okay? I took a deep breath before responding. I'm fine. What's going on there? His reply came almost instantly. Mom's crying. Dad's on the phone. I think they're talking to a lawyer or the bank. I scoffed under my breath. Of course they were. They weren't panicking because they regretted what they did. They were panicking because they got caught. I put the car in drive and pulled away from the house that used to be mine. Not anymore. By the time I got back to my apartment, my body was exhausted, but my mind was still racing. I dropped my keys on the counter, grabbed a bottle of water from the fridge, and sank onto the couch. I knew I needed to do more than just confront them. I needed to protect myself. I pulled out my laptop and started looking up identity theft lawyers. I needed to figure out what could be done about the loans they took out in my name. If I didn't take care of it now, who knew what else they might try? As I scrolled through options, my phone rang. Mom. I let it go to voicemail. A few seconds later, a text popped up. We need to talk. Call me. I ignored it. Another text. Don't be rash. We're still your parents. I scoffed. That card wasn't going to work anymore. A minute later, Sebastian texted again. They're pissed. I smirked to myself. Good. Then, another message came through. Mom just threatened to take legal action against you. She said if you report them, she'll make sure you regret it. I sat up straight, blood turning to ice. Legal action? What the HLL did she think she had on me? I dialed Sebastian immediately. He picked up on the first ring. What did she say? I asked, skipping any greeting. She was talking to Dad, but I heard most of it, he said, his voice hushed like he didn't want them to hear. She said something about defamation, About you ruining their reputation. I pinched the bridge of my nose. They're bluffing. I think so too, he admitted. But they're desperate, and desperate people do crazy crap. I nodded to myself. He was right. Sebastian hesitated, then added, and there's something else. I stiffened. What? They tried to open another credit card. My stomach dropped. In my name this time. My fingers tightened around my phone. Did they succeed? No. I got an alert and froze my credit as soon as I saw it. I exhaled slowly, my heart pounding. Good. Smart. He was quiet for a moment. What are you going to do? I stared at the laptop screen in front of me, at the list of lawyers I had pulled up. My parents weren't just manipulative, they were dangerous. And they needed to be stopped. I'm going to make sure they can never do this to us again, I said firmly. Sebastian let out a shaky breath. Okay. I could hear the relief in his voice. And for the first time in years, I felt in control. I didn't sleep that night. Even after I got off the phone with Sebastian, my mind kept spinning, replaying everything that had happened. The invoice, the manipulation, the fraud. And now, they were trying to open a credit card in my brother's name. It didn't take a genius to see what was happening. They were desperate, drowning in debt, and grasping at any lifeline they could find, even if it meant screwing over their own children. I needed to act fast. The next morning, I made 2 calls, one to a lawyer and one to my bank. I explained everything to the bank representative, keeping my voice as steady as I could. The loans, the fraudulent accounts, the suspicious activity under my name. The woman on the other end listened patiently, then said, "This is serious. You may need to file a police report." My stomach clenched, but I nodded. Yeah, I figured. After that, I called a lawyer, Emma Reyes, a fraud and identity theft attorney whose reviews online made it clear she didn't take any crap. She picked up on the second ring. Emma Reyes speaking. I swallowed. Hi, my name is, I know who you are. I froze. What? She sighed. Your parents called me first. A chill ran down my spine. Excuse me. They were looking for legal advice about a family dispute. Her voice was sharp, professional. Didn't take long to figure out they were in trouble. I exhaled slowly. And what did you tell them? I told them I don't help criminals. For the first time in 24 hours, I laughed. Emma was already my favorite person. We scheduled a consultation for later that afternoon. Things were about to get real. Around noon, Sebastian called again. They're freaking out, he said, voice hushed. Dad's making calls nonstop, and Mom keeps pacing. She's talking about selling more stuff. My jaw tightened. Like what? My laptop, he muttered. Some of your old stuff. Even her jewelry. Of course she was. Mom would rather pawn off anything of value than admit she screwed up. Did she say anything about me? I asked. Sebastian hesitated. She told Dad that you'll cave. That you always do. My stomach twisted. Of course she thought that. For years, I had caved. Every time they guilt-tripped me. Every time they made me feel like I owed them something. I let them get away with it. Not this time. I gritted my teeth. She's wrong. Sebastian was quiet for a moment. Then, softly, he said, I know. At 3 p.m., I met with Emma at her office. She was a petite woman in her late 40s, but she carried herself like she was 6 feet tall. The kind of person who walked into a room and immediately commanded attention. I told her everything. The loans, the identity theft, the invoice, the threats. She listened without interrupting, her expression unreadable. When I finished, she leaned back in her chair, tapping her pen against the desk. Well, she said finally, they're screwed. A breath I didn't even realize I was holding rushed out of me. I swallowed. You're sure? Emma gave me a sharp look. Your parents are a holies. I blinked. She smirked. They left a paper trail. The fake loans? That's felony-level identity theft. If you file a report, the bank will investigate, and your parents will be up to their necks in legal trouble. My heart pounded. So, what's my best option? Emma leaned forward. That depends. Do you want to see them pay for what they did? I hesitated. Did I? For years, I had swallowed every insult, every manipulation, every selfish decision they made. I had let them take from me over and over again. And now, I had the power to stop them. Emma must have seen something shift in my expression because she nodded. File the police report. If they've already tried to mess with Sebastian's credit, it's only a matter of time before they do something worse. I exhaled. Okay. I was doing this. No more guilt. No more fear. I was taking my life back. But my parents weren't done yet. That night, I got a text from an unknown number. You have no idea what you're getting yourself into. I stared at the message, my skin crawling. A second later, another text came through. If you go through with this, you'll regret it. I clenched my jaw. They were threatening me now? Fine. Let's see how they like being backed into a corner for once. I took a screenshot and sent it to Emma. Her response was immediate. Good. Let them dig their own grave. The moment I sent the threatening text to Emma, she called me. They're getting desperate, she said, her voice as sharp as ever. Which means you have them exactly where you want them. I swallowed, gripping my phone. So what's next? She didn't hesitate. You file the police report. You freeze your credit. Make sure Sebastian does the same, and let the law handle the rest. I hesitated. And what happens to them? Emma sighed. Best case? The bank presses charges for fraud, and they end up with a mountain of legal trouble. Worst case? They try to spin this and manipulate their way out, but I doubt they'll succeed. Not with the evidence you have. I sat back on my couch, staring at the ceiling. I had spent years letting them take advantage of me. But now, they were the ones who were cornered. I made my decision. Let's do it. Filing the report was easier than I expected. I went to the police station the next morning, met with an officer, and laid everything out. The fraudulent loans. The attempts to open credit in my name and Sebastian's. The threatening texts. When I was done, the officer leaned back and let out a low whistle. This is serious, he said. They could be looking at real charges. I nodded. I know. He sighed, tapping his fingers on the desk. You sure you want to go through with this? I thought about all the guilt trips, all the times I sacrificed for them, only to be met with entitlement and manipulation. I thought about Sebastian, the way they had already tried to ruin his future, just like they had ruined mine. And I knew my answer. Yes, I said firmly. I'm sure. He nodded. Then we'll start investigating. I walked out of that station feeling lighter than I had in years. It took less than a week for the fallout to begin. First, the bank froze all their accounts. Since the fraudulent loans were linked to my credit, the bank immediately flagged them for investigation. Suddenly, my parents couldn't access any of the money they had stolen. Then came the legal letters. Emma had wasted no time. She sent them a formal notice, detailing the fraud charges, the potential consequences, and what would happen if they didn't return every cent they stole. According to Sebastian, Mom lost her mind. She's been crying nonstop, he told me over the phone. She keeps saying you betrayed her. I scoffed. She betrayed herself. Dad, on the other hand, was silent. Sebastian hesitated. I think he knows they're screwed. Good. 2 weeks later, I got a call from Emma. They want to settle, she said. I blinked. What? They're willing to sign an agreement stating they'll never touch your credit again, she explained. They'll also pay back every fraudulent loan. In return, you drop the police report. I sat back in my chair, stunned. That's it. Emma chuckled. Oh, they're not getting off easy. If they miss a single payment, they're back in legal trouble. And they still have to deal with the bank's fraud investigation. I exhaled, processing it all. They were trapped. If they paid me back, they were bleeding money. If they didn't, the law would crush them. Either way, I won. I smirked. Send me the paperwork. A few days later, I got one last call from my mother. Her voice was shaky. You really did this to us. I leaned back, completely calm. No, Mom. You did this to yourselves. She sniffled. We're your parents. And that never stopped you from using me. I said simply. For once, she had no response. Silence stretched between us. Then, quietly, she muttered, I hope you're happy. I smiled. For the first time in my life? I said, yeah, I really am. And then I hung up. For good. Sebastian moved out a month later. I helped him find a cheap apartment, gave him advice on budgeting, and even got him in touch with a lawyer to make sure our parents couldn't touch his finances. They won't ever be able to pull this crap again, he told me, grinning. I smiled back. We were free. As for my parents, they were stuck paying back every cent they stole. They had spent years treating me like a walking bank account. But in the end, I was the one who walked away. And it felt damn good.